shit. Alright, actually need to adjust the audio here a little bit. Hello everybody, it is the Dark Conservatarian, and I'm so sorry that I am late with this news stream right now, but I just got a little bit tied up with things and trying to actually find out the right information that is appropriate to present within this episode of Strike Force, because honestly, voter fraud is a little bit of a messy subject to be talking about in general, especially for this go around, as there is plenty of convincing arguments or articles in regards of both sides, from both sides, in the whole voter fraud narrative. And right now, I am here with one of my co-hosts, Rational Outlaw. Say hello, Rash.
Howdy.
Yeah, so Rational Outlaw, he was planning on possibly doing a video talking about voter fraud.
Actually, it was just going to be a meme funny video. That's all.
Oh. My bad. I thought it was gonna be I thought it was gonna be a little bit more of a serious topic, kind of like your police brutality and race issue video, which you said that Filthy Heretic commented on.
I don't have a huge interest in covering it. I just wanted to make a meme about it. That's all. Like okay. I've made a couple other meme videos. I don't make them very often. I've only made 2 so far, and this would, if I was to finish it, it would be my 3rd.
I see. And hello, Invisible Hand in the chat right now. So, unless any of y'all have been like living under a rock, it's almost seeming like it's being announced that Joe Biden is now president-elect for the years of 2021 through 2025, it seems. Although there was a little bit of news that happened that just had a little bit of a spurt, a little bit within the past 24 hours, of where that Pennsylvania had flipped from Joe Biden to Donald Trump, but that bit of news wasn't exactly credible. So it seems that Joe Biden, at least according to the numbers here, is still being held by Biden, Pennsylvania, I mean. Especially according to ABC News, their election results map. It may have very briefly went to Trump, but who knows, overnight, but who knows exactly. But nonetheless, so I have been like giving out my whole spiel on what my thoughts are about this election in other streams, but I haven't been giving it on my own channel here recently. Not ever since at least the election day coverage anyways. And memes aside, because I know that me and Nate the Voluntarist and Night Shift 10,000 were on that stream just yucking it up about how that Virginia is likely going to go Republican, even though that Google and other websites are just calling it for Biden a little bit too early. Not just a little, but way too early, because Virginia for the longest time was showing that Donald Trump was ahead in the vote numbers for Virginia than Joe Biden, and yet they were still calling that state for Joe Biden. So that goes wondering, all these organizations that were calling Virginia for Biden that early, what do they know? It almost seems kind of suspect. Although I don't have any information if there was exactly any voter fraud that went on in Virginia. I don't know if there's like anything that has been coming out universally speaking about Virginia voter fraud, but I digress. So
I would suspect the reason is because since Virginia has, I think, since 2004 or 8, I can't remember which.
08.
Has voted blue.
It's 2008.
Okay.
2004, they did vote to re-elect George Bush.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, That was one of the things that we were kind of laughing at, and also the possibility of California, all the Democrat voters like leaving California to make it almost possibly go towards Trump. I mean, it became just a bit of a meme for the election coverage, but in all reality, we all knew that California was ultimately going to go for Biden. So all that aside, and we were also talking about Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Those three states, for the longest time, were looking like they were likely going to go for Trump. But the very day after Election Day, Michigan and Wisconsin ended up going for Biden. Pennsylvania, it took them a while till it actually went for Biden. And Georgia is almost looking like it's going to be trending for Biden, but by a very razor-thin margin.
Well, Georgia, I know, is either or is going to have a recount, they've said.
Okay.
So we don't know what's going to happen with that. And I know there's fraud allegations, I think it was, in Pennsylvania, because as you were saying, there were some legitimate claims in which, like, for example, I think it was in Philadelphia where poll watchers or Republican poll watchers or whatever it be were kept out from being able to make sure there was no fraud going on.
Mm-hmm. I haven't actually looked into reading that yet, folks. Although it's just something I generally hear that they were not getting a bipartisan oversight in this. True Grave says, yo, what's up? You covered Arizona yet? Not yet. If he's the confirmed winner, he better make it through his whole term, says Invisible Hand. Right? We don't want Kamala Harris. Zachary Colley, is everyone insane? In all seriousness, hi. What's up, Zach? Invisible Hand also says, California's been blue since 92. Yeah, we know. We were talking about Virginia, though. Techno says, hello to, at least when animated, Harvey Dent and the sus furfag. What the fuck? Apparently that's being a bit of a meme because Among Us being one of the most recent released games, and and Techno took the an Among Us avatar for his profile pic on Discord. But before we actually get into talking about the whole voter fraud thing, very quickly talking about what my thoughts are on the possibility of a Biden presidency. Now, everybody keeps on talking about that Biden won't have a whole lot of political capital, nor would Trump have a lot of political capital if Trump was ultimately able to like pull a miracle within the next month or two before Inauguration Day, that they would not be able to get a whole lot done, seeing as that they have a bit of a split Congress where one house is held by Democrats and one house is held by Republicans. And I have been espousing this for quite a while now as a kind of AJW, actual justice warrior. Sean has been kind of espousing as well that if we do not win the Senate, in which we ultimately did, the presidency wouldn't have hardly meant lick. And I'm of the belief that I do not trust Trump on guns at all. And Republicans, even though the general party hasn't been the absolute best on guns, as I've had talks with other people before who shall not be mentioned, but nonetheless, looking back at 2013 of how they at least stood firm against Obama in reviving the assault weapons ban, they have at least a little bit of a reputation of standing up for people's AR-15s at the very least bit anyways, whereas Trump said that he is willing to compromise on the assault weapons ban. 2023 is right around the corner. That is within the next 4 years. Whoever of these two is going to ultimately get elected, Trump or Biden. And once 2023 rolls around the corner, Trump, if he was to be surrounded by both a Democrat-controlled Senate and a Democrat-controlled House, as Democrats are keeping the House, obviously, goes without saying, then Trump would ultimately buckle under the pressure of going along with the gun control agenda. I would say ultimately there would end up being a mass shooting that would have widespread coverage and start pulling at everybody's heartstrings, including possibly Trump's, and AR-15s would be banned by 2023. If Joe Biden was to win, which it's almost looking like he is, he's going to make a more concerted effort to try and ban guns, especially the further production of AR-15s and whatnot. But now that we have a Republican Senate in, the Republican-held Senate is going to at least hold either one of these two's feet to the fire on the front of guns. So Trump ain't going to be fully pressured, and Biden ain't going to get completely his own way in that regard. So that's how I feel for the next 4 years will happen under a possible Biden presidency. Talking more specifically about a possible Biden presidency, because he's more likely looking to be the winner than Trump at this point, unless Trump can get his way in taking the states into court when it comes to voter fraud and whatnot. What was I going to say? As far as foreign policy goes, that seems to be the one thing that I'm not exactly sure of what Biden would get done. I don't think Biden will get a whole lot done domestically speaking, especially when it comes to guns, with having to go face to face, toe to toe with a Republican-controlled Senate. But on foreign policy, I do not know exactly how that would look personally. But Rash, what is it that you have to say now that I've rambled so long? What would you have to say about the possibility of a Biden presidency?
I would say that it will probably would be pretty much nothing burger, so long as the Republicans don't try to concede, or so long as Biden. Well, I don't even think if Biden even necessarily did try to do executive orders like Obama did, probably wouldn't be able to get those passed, because I would at least hope, but I would assume the Supreme Court would probably overrule those and say they're unconstitutional, at least hopefully. But I would say, yeah, it probably would be a pretty much nothing burger with Joe Biden. Now, even if Kamala Harris was to take over, I would say it'd still be a nothing burger, because unless they were to, excuse me, unless during the midterms they tried to flip the Senate and were able to keep the House.
Right.
That would be the only thing you'd have to worry about, I would think.
Yeah, I don't think Biden will have getting himself enough momentum as far as approval ratings go to give a good look on the Democratic Party to make people want to vote Democrat by 2022 as far as the Senate goes. And True Grave says Biden would just use executive orders. There is a bit of a scare in that regard when it comes to executive orders.
But as I said, I think the Supreme Court, I'm pretty sure they would overrule most, if not all, executive orders that he would put in if they are blatantly unconstitutional. Like, let's say he put an executive order to ban AR-15s. I'm pretty sure the Supreme Court would rule in saying that is unconstitutional.
Oh yeah, and now that we mentioned the Supreme Court, there's also the other side in regards of the Republicans keeping the Senate. They can at least deny Joe Biden any further SCOTUS nominations in the possibility of packing the court. So that's another good thing that came out of a Republican win in the Senate.
Well, I think I also heard recently, which is good. One thing is good is that I think a Democrat senator had come out who recently was reelected or elected, said he would not, if Joe Biden was to try, would not support court packing.
Do you remember the name of the person?
I'd have to find it again I think I saw it on Twitter briefly, but yeah, he said that he would not be in favor of court packing.
Did I hear a knock on your door?
Yeah, hold on, family. Go ahead. I'll catch up in just a sec.
All right. For right now, I'm going to keep on with my commentary here. But so in regards of a Biden presidency, me looking at it from that point of view of that the Republicans are at least going to keep the Senate, I am not as pessimistic as some other Trump supporters of a Biden win in the presidency. Yeah, it will likely be a bit worse than if Trump was to keep the presidency, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as I had originally thought that an Obama presidency would have been back in 2008 or 2012. But of course, my train of thought has kind of, or my thinking has kind of matured a bit as well. But also on top of that, Biden doesn't have a full house of nothing but Democrats, or nothing but Democrat control in the House and the Senate. But nonetheless is still worth looking into, even if Biden is ultimately not going to get his way.
By the way,
If this was won via voter fraud, it still is worth talking about, because if he did win by cheating, it still puts forth a bad precedent for future elections nonetheless, especially for like 2024. And so that is why that we're here primarily. What were you about to say, Rash?
no, nothing. Go ahead.
Okay. There was something else that I wanted to address. And I almost forgot to mention this. By 2024, I don't think that Biden would maintain enough approval or gain enough approval to, win the Senate for the Democratic Party in 2022. But even by 2024, I think that Joe Biden would ultimately lose. Do you think he's going to care about his approval, asks True Grave? Well, Biden will have to if he wants to be able to gain more votes to the Democratic Party in the 2022 or 2024 races.
I don't even think Biden is going to make it through this term if he becomes president.
Yeah, there is also the issue of, in regards of his health. I mean, him being an old, decrepit old cogger and all. But
the guy is...
What?
He's about as senile as you can get without being so senile that you have to be put in the home.
Right. Just like the Supreme Court overruled Trump's bump stock ban. Oh, wait. Asks Drew Grave. Fair point there. Fair point, but we'll have to see in the future of how much SCOTUS does decide to rule in on these.
Well, I would say the only two SCOTUS, the more right-wing judges you would have to worry about are Kavanaugh and what is the other guy Trump appointed. Those would be the only two who are definitely not constitutionalists.
Well, Kavanaugh, I think, is at least pro-gun. I mean, he's not exactly pro-privacy in regards of his Fourth Amendment history, but I think he's at least safely pro-gun. Yeah,
but I'm gonna say this is, even if with the whole bump stock ban, do I like it? No. But as far as gun control goes, is that the biggest thing? Really not. It's really benign, I'm just gonna say.
And so, moving on to talking about the actual voter fraud as well, more specifically. One of the claims that I've been hearing about as to how that it is that, or that is being served as evidence as to how that the Democrats cheated this election, is that there is shown to be more ballots within, I think they, it was some of these three states: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. It was either one of the three states or all the three states or just two of them. I don't know. I can't remember exactly. But essentially they were saying that there are more ballots turned in for Biden, or more ballots turned in general than there were actual registered voters. And that got me to want to research the number, some website or whatever, that actually shows of how many people are registered to vote in 2020. And I did find that website. And just looking at those three key states, let's see, Michigan. So this is the number of registered voters right here. This is the state, obviously. And as far as Michigan goes, 8 million. 8.1 million people voted in Michigan. And looking at Michigan here, it's not exactly looking like past 8 million people that voted. It's looking like more like 5.5 million, something like that, roughly, if you were to add in both the Democratic and Republican voters that you're seeing on screen right there. And Wisconsin, well, actually, Pennsylvania is 9 million people registered to vote. Ballots turned in is adding up to about 7 million, a little bit under 7 million between Biden and Trump. And as far as Wisconsin goes, Wisconsin is 3.6 million, closer to 3.7 million. And the amount of ballots that are turned in, it's looking to be a little bit closer in Wisconsin. Like a whole lot more people that actually did register to vote turned out. So it's a higher percentage. So maybe there's a little bit of suspicion right there that possibly things look kind of fishy.
I've
But
been seeing
nonetheless,
like that meme
added.
around with say like
Wait.
89%.
Rash. I was wanting to finish this very quickly. But
Okay.
ultimately, the total amount of ballots turned in between Trump and Biden in Wisconsin is looking like 3.2 million out of the 3.7 million of registered voters in Wisconsin. What were you saying, Rash?
I was saying that the meme where people have been sharing about there being 89% turnout with Wisconsin, I found that it was actually false. And I don't know where that exactly came up. Maybe just someone faked it entirely or whatever, or bad math. But anyways, it was more like I think around the turnout, the actual turnout is around I think 76% for Wisconsin, which isn't abnormal, which isn't super high. I mean, it's higher than normal, but it's not like outrageously high like some people were thinking it was.
Mm-hmm. So with that claim of voter fraud, I just have to, yeah, but just by looking at the numbers here between registered votes and the added amount of ballots turned in between these three swing states, I just doubt it on it. So Obama didn't steal the electoral process, says True Grave. When did I mention Obama? Or did someone else mention Obama in the live chat? Because I don't recall mentioning anything about Obama, really. Yeah. What was I gonna... if Joe Biden wins the presidency, the office of the president will lose all legitimacy, which is why I think that there should still be an investigation put into this, because this is looking like the biggest case of voter fraud. I mean, if all this, with all this that has played out, I think 2020 can still be used as the biggest piece of evidence of voter fraud that has ever happened within the United States.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can say this is that whether it's voter fraud or irregularities, there are some major problems. For example, in one county, or I forget, in one district, in which a politician was behind a close race, once they found an error in Michigan, they found out that actually the Republican won and not the Democrat. So errors or voter fraud can have an effect. Now, whether it's going to be able to flip a presidency is much less likely.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's not out of the realm of possibilities.
As far as like the glitches go, like the bit of software that was used in Michigan, unfortunately, I did not look into that specifically. If there's any information that anyone wants to present to me on software glitches in Michigan, by all means, provide the sources in the Strike Force News.
Well, yeah, there was like around
my Discord server. And what were you saying, Rash?
I was going to say there was. Excuse me. There was around, although I'm not sure if they found anything more, but the one county they did find, they found there was actually supposed to be 6,000 votes were supposed to go to Trump, but they were accidentally put in for Biden by the software. Mm-hmm. And they're having to look into it because since the software is used in, I think they said 47 other counties, and that they want to make sure there hasn't been any other problems where maybe votes have been switched between either candidate. So Michigan's going to be having some checking there to see if there's any errors by the software. And maybe if there is more errors, it could actually potentially lead to other states having to check, because I think many other states have the same exact software.
Mm-hmm. Techno 1200 says the Wisconsin one was false. It was a New York Times or New York Post reporting error. Okay, Techno. I did not know of what that exactly is in response to. So, the next claim that I kind of have to press X out on, at least for right now, and this honestly might piss off some of my viewers a little bit, is the whole Sharpie thing. As I gone searching into that, I could not find any articles at all that gone talking about and proving that there is actual tangible evidence that Sharpie ballots, that ballots being written on with Sharpies are being invalidated and just, rejected entirely. As I had actually read from USA Today here, and I'll have all the links to these articles linked down in the description box below after we go off air, because I did not have time to exactly organize all the sources this time to link them in the description box. But nonetheless, according to USA Today, yeah, it seems that they are not being outright rejected. There is some things in complications, or there's some complications in regards of what type of pens or writing utensils in general that you use. Like, you cannot use red ink, for example. But aside from that, I just cannot be... I just cannot exactly buy into it. At least yet, anyways. Although there was this one bit of anecdotal evidence that was going around on Twitter a bit. This claim about election fraud is disputed, as is being flagged by Twitter, obviously. But I'm just looking at this anecdote. I looked at it about a week ago, or a little less than a week ago, and I'm just thinking to myself, how can you really make this up? Turns out 118-year-old William Bradley voted via absentee ballot in Wayne County, Michigan. William Bradley died in 1984. How long has this been going on? Try it for yourself. MVIC, there's a link right there to do this yourself. William Bradley, birth year 1902, yada yada. City of Detroit, Wayne County. Yes, you are registered. And says election date 11/3/2020. And application date, application received was 9/11/2020. Ballot sent 9/19/2020. Ballot received in October 2nd, 2020. And the fourth one says that he actually died June 1st, 1984. Now, you could go off on a limb that possibly this is a different William Bradley, but all the same, just things, I don't know, things just go raising a whole bunch of eyebrows about this.
Well, I'm just going to say that I think there is enough to... I definitely think everything should be investigated. Now, will it make it so that it turns out that Trump has won the election? I think that's unlikely. That's my personal thing. My boyfriend still thinks that there is a good chance that Trump could still win with the allegations fraud. I personally don't think there's enough, but we'll see how everything goes as everything turns out.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little bit inarticulate and all over the place here, folks. I'm actually I'm actually a little bit of a mess in the information that I was trying to find, like, last second, and pre-read a little bit, whatnot. All right. So, moving on about the whole election fraud or voter fraud evidence, I actually have two articles lined up talking about the evidence and presenting the evidence of how there is plausible voter fraud, although this is a rather long article right here, so maybe I'll just start reading. No time like the present. This is a website that So this is the first time that I actually came across this website right here, ideasanddata.wordpress.com. But the title reads, Evidence of Voter Fraud in the 2020 U.S. Presidential Election, November 10th, 2020. So just released today. In this article, I will argue that there are many lines of evidence, the combination of which justifies us thinking that significant voter fraud occurred in the 2020 U.S. election, which increased the chances of Joe Biden winning in key swing states. Now, another side of this whole voter fraud subject that I did not tackle yet is, if there is voter fraud, in which there seems most likely that there is some, how much is it? Like, is it enough to have actually had swing over who became president? Like, if that voter fraud is rescinded and rejected ultimately, will it actually give Trump a full-on victory to swing Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and possibly even Arizona? That's the big question here. Does it add up? I mean, people keep on claiming voter fraud was done in XYZ case, but people are not substantiating the numbers enough for it to add up to swing an entire state. Anyways,
I think in certain
not in the
states,
claims,
like
anyways.
I believe Georgia could potentially flip back in Trump's favor if there has been found either errors or voter fraud.
Well, that's one
Same thing
state.
with Wisconsin, I think.
Well, that's one state. It would have to. I don't know.
And I
Trump would have to
think,
like
let
win
me
back
see, how
3
many
states at
vote
least.
difference were there in Pennsylvania?
I think Trump would have to win back at least 3 states in order to actually gain the presidency. Like the states that are up for grabs are Georgia. Well, no, North Carolina is looking like it's going to go for Trump in all eventuality as soon as they are finished counting. So we could just pretty much count that as Donald Trump's. But Georgia, maybe Arizona, and Pennsylvania, he would have to win back. He would have to win back at least 3 states, if not 4, in order to become president.
Well, yeah, these are the states he would have to win. He would either have to win Wisconsin, I believe Wisconsin and Michigan, or Michigan and Arizona, or Pennsylvania, Georgia, still North Carolina and Alaska, and the 2nd or 3rd district in, I think, Kansas. Was it Kansas? Let me see.
Nebraska.
Not Nebraska, that's right.
Kansas
I think
doesn't-
that district,
Kansas
whatever district that went for Biden, is being
Yeah.
relooked at, I think, for some errors they were finding.
Mm-hmm. So continuing on. Before turning specifically to the 2020 election, it is important to note that election fraud is not unheard of in the United States. This is worth establishing because if we think election fraud almost never happens, then we will have a higher bar of evidence for the justification of any particular claim of fraud. Excuse me. In recent decades, there have been over 1,200 known instances of voter fraud, due to which 20 U.S. elections had to be overturned to declare a new winner. This is, of course, according to, I think, Heritage. And, of course, all of you know, like who had tuned into Strike Force the other day. I can't remember exactly how long ago it was, but we had read that one article that was talking about 20 U.S. elections. Yeah, if y'all recall back to that episode, we had read that case that they're presenting here as well. Of these 15 were overturned due to fraud involving mail-based ballots. Lucas 2020. This isn't surprising since mail-in ballots have long been noted to be particularly vulnerable to fraud. This is why most European nations have either banned absentee voting or require an ID for someone to obtain such a ballot. So that's kind of funny because the continent, or the countries that ban guns, or at least are far more restricted on guns than the United States, seems to be at least more based when it comes to voting. Ironically enough. This fact has been attested to by American media on both the right and left. For instance, in 2012, the New York Times wrote the following: while fraud in voting by mail is far less common than innocent errors, it is vastly more prevalent than the in-person voting fraud that has attracted far more attention, election administrators say. In Florida, absentee ballot scandals seem to arrive like clockwork around election time. And hello, Scorch in the chat, by the way. I would not be surprised if what AOC said about logging Trump supporters was a psyop, says Zachary Colley. Maybe. The piece even went as far as to cast doubt on the 2000 U.S. presidential election results on the basis of such concerns. Voting by mail is now common enough and problematic enough that election experts say there have been multiple elections in which no one can say with confidence which candidate was the deserved winner. The list includes the 2000 presidential election, in which problems with absentee ballots in Florida were a little noticed footnote to other issues. Voting by mail also played a crucial role in the 2000 presidential election in Florida, when the margin between George W. Bush and Al Gore was razor thin and hundreds of absentee ballots were counted in apparent violation of state law. The flawed ballots from Americans living abroad included some without postmarks, some postmarked after the election, some without witness signatures, some mailed from within the United States, and some sent by people who voted twice. All would have been disqualified had the state's election laws been strictly enforced. Liptak 2012. So this is getting kind of juicy, this article right here. Similarly, in December of 2016, a majority, 52% of Democrats, agreed with the statement Russia tampered with vote tallies in order to get Donald Trump elected president. YouGov 2016. I don't know about that claim exactly because I've seen, I don't know, I would have to possibly research back on that subject, but nonetheless. Truegrave says, Sharpies invalidate ballots. That's why if you look on ballots, they tell you not to use it. You just don't want to believe that. You just don't want to believe that. I don't have a particular bias on whether I want to believe that or not, Truegrave. So, calm your tits there. Your tits there. I just haven't seen the strongest of evidence in order to say that it has invalidated ballots. You're going to get all your information from the media. Newsflash, the media lies. Well, it depends on which media outlet that you go to, I say. USA Today, as far as I know, is not the most untrustworthy of news sites. And like I said, in my original search for information on the point of Sharpies, I could not find any articles that go outright explicitly saying that, Sharpies are invalidating ballots. So being worried about voter fraud and even suggesting it could alter the results of a U.S. presidential election is not outside the norm of U.S. politics. Before I said that there are roughly 1,200 known cases of recent American voter fraud. Of course, this doesn't tell us how common voter fraud really is because it could be that the vast majority of instances are never detected. County-level analysis shows that there are at least 1.8 million excess registered voters relative to the eligible population size, and this at least opens the door for the possibility of voter fraud on a truly massive scale. Judicial Watch 2020. They have a lot of links and citations, coming up after the statements made here. This is why that I'm just randomly saying names and years. More importantly, non-citizens in America report voting at rates that imply at least nearly 1 million cases of voter fraud per year. This suggests that only a tiny proportion of the voter fraud that takes place is normally caught, and that fraud at a scale that can change elections is actually the norm. Of course, these figures leave out voter fraud not involving immigrants, and so is surely a significant underestimation of the total amount of fraud that takes place. So, looks like that there is some issues that we're definitely going to have to return to on a different date, folks. By the way, if I may say very quickly, I got 9 concurrent viewers right now and only 1 rating right now, only 1 like. If you like the stream here, don't forget to hit that like button as it'll help in the algorithm and boost up this channel a bit. Just a reminder, folks. The typical response to such figures is to say that survey respondents could be lying or could have read the question incorrectly. That they are not lying is attested to by the fact that researchers have verified the voting of about 2% of the non-citizens in these surveys. That they are not confused is attested to by multiple lines of evidence, such as the fact that respondents give the same answers multiple times when they are followed for years and ask the same questions repeatedly. Thus, until better evidence to the contrary is presented, we are justified in thinking that voter fraud is actually very common in the United States. YouTube, give Mafia Khan a cookie, says Techno1200. Yes. Turning to the 2020 election, there are multiple known instances where election workers were caught entering wrong numbers into the system that inflated Biden's vote county relative to Trump. That's a weird sentence right there. Of course, in each case, this is claimed to have been an accident, and of course, there is absolutely no way of showing this is true. There's absolutely no way of showing. I guess there's no tangible way of actually proving it. It's more like a suspicious correlation or something. This is what they're saying essentially. Of course, in each case, this is claimed to have been an accident, and of course, there is no way of showing that that it was truly an accident, is an unintended accident, is what they're saying. Never mind. Citation, state description. Normine, Virginia, in Fairfax County, a clerical error caused Biden votes to be inflated by roughly 100,000. Ooh, damn.
I just wanted to bring up one quick thing.
Go ahead.
A viewer has brought up the fact that you should search about the USPS whistleblower Richard Hopkins, who says that there is voter fraud.
That's the next. I think that might be the next article right here, actually. So, continuing on. Election officials have said that these errors being caught is evidence that they are really good at catching errors. But there are at least two good reasons to doubt this. First, these errors were all huge. And by the way, you can say your boyfriend's name in the chat, just future reference. But there are at least two good reasons to doubt this. First, these errors were all huge, and it seems unlikely that people only make huge errors and never small ones. So the lack of stories about small errors suggests that they are actually pretty bad at detecting errors, quote unquote. Second, the sheer number of voter fraud convictions that have taken place, the rate at which non-citizens seem to vote, and the number of excess voters illegitimately kept on voter rolls all seem to imply that, at the very least, this is a highly error-prone process. Man, you're missing a lot of fun in the chat, Dark Khan. LOL. Sorry. I'm just realizing that this stream is looking like it's going to be a long one, and I've already started late, and I haven't even ate dinner yet. So, part of me wants to kind of rush this one. Speaking of Russians, Zachary Colley says in the chat, perhaps Putin worked with the DNC. Let's trap him with vodka. Had to, just to lighten the mood. Scorch says, Arizona has said it's okay to use a Sharpie with their ballots. Yeah, that's what the officials said, as according to USA Today. Zachary Colley says, Chinese collusion? Let's trap him with General Tso's chicken and lo mein. Maybe a part 2, says Invisible Hand. Possibly, but Sunday's edition of Strike Force, I think I might just go on talking about things other than other than voter fraud, honestly, unless I come across something that is really damning. So we have good reasons to think they aren't great at catching errors. By contrast, we don't have any good reasons for thinking these were actually errors. The fact that all three stories about such errors each favored Biden is reasonably improbable to happen by chance, 12.5%. But it's highly probable given mass election fraud, and so these stories should increase the probability we assign to such fraud having occurred. We also have multiple eyewitness accounts, mostly from election or postal workers, who claim that fraud was being engaged in and ballots were being wrongly discarded. You know, I do just want to add on very quickly that it does seem kind of suspicious. I mean, a lot of these claims about voter fraud and whatnot are more eyewitness, are more like average Joe eyewitness anecdotes. And then election officials will come in saying, no, those eyewitnesses are wrong. So who to believe? It's like my word versus your word sort of circumstance right there, perhaps. There are also multiple aspects of how the election was openly carried out, which are seemingly illegal and which made it easier for voter fraud to take place. So there's a whole lot of... Okay, you know, I'm just going to read the descriptions of some of these citations that this article is providing. Solomon 2020 state is Michigan. A city worker from Detroit claims he and fellow employees were told to backdate ballots that came in too late. Constantino et al. 2020 Michigan. Poll watcher and former assistant state attorney general Zachary Larson filed an affidavit stating he had seen voter fraud being committed by election workers. Dinan 2020 Pennsylvania. A Pennsylvania mail carrier has said in a sworn affidavit that he was ordered by supervisors to collect and submit late ballots, which he said supervisors then backdated so that they appeared to have been mailed in time. Larson 2020, Nevada. I personally witnessed disregard of signature verification as well as other irregularities, the whistleblower said in the affidavit. While working, I observed a significant number of signatures on mail-in ballots I believe did not match the name and should have been reviewed. When I asked the supervisors, redacted, and others about it, instead of taking the ballots to verify the signature in the electronic database, the supervisor told me to push the envelope through without verification. Now, just a little bit of a side note. That's Nevada, not Arizona. My bad. Singman 2020, Arizona. Based on sworn testimony, it is alleged that ballots in Maricopa County featuring overvoting were invalidated rather than fixed. So that description right there doesn't explicitly go talking about the whole Sharpies thing, but nonetheless. True Grave says in the chat, yes, there is voter fraud in Arizona. Not maybe. You're not going to find a news article that claims that. What are you on about, True Grave? Man, it seems like I'm bleeding. Almost seems like I'm bleeding viewers right now. Am I that boring, people? I'm sorry if I'm a little bit monotone this episode of Strike Force. Sorry to disappoint people. Citation, Heller 2020, State, Pennsylvania. Election observers were kept 30 feet from the actual vote counting, meaning they could not see the ballots. Payne 2020. Okay, so there is the little thing that you were mentioning right there, Rash, about people being separated from being able to observe and witness the votes being counted. Payne 2020, Wisconsin. Election officials track down witness addresses for absentee ballots, a policy that may be illegal. Payne 2020, Wisconsin. Only the state legislature can change election procedures, but election officials allowed potentially over 100,000 voters to bypass ID requirements by claiming that COVID prevented them from leaving home. Mills 2020, Pennsylvania. Democrat election leaders told county officials to give party operatives information about rejected mail ballots in violation of state law. So yeah, this is a lot of citations that they bring up, and this article is probably worthy of returning back to, mostly to go reading at their own citations. There are also 5 significant lines of I'm getting tongue-tied a lot in this episode. There are also 5 significant lines of statistical evidence suggesting fraud. First, in Pennsylvania, whereby exit polls Biden won those over 65 by only 3 points, CNN 2020. 69 people were recorded as being born before 1900 requested, and most returned ballots, of which 80% were registered Democrat and 16% of which were registered Republicans. Meaning this isn't well explained by random birthday entry errors. This can all be seen using data published on the Pennsylvania government's web domain, pa.gov 2020. Here's a screenshot of what that data looks like. Okay, I cannot exactly see the screen cap very well, and I'm pretty sure that y'all can't see it that well either, but so we're just going to continue on. Z Commander says, in Germany, during our election cycle, we had the same thing. Mail-in ballots for the AfD turned to either SPD or CDU. Okay. Are those like different parties in Germany? And he also says, we don't have poll.
Yeah, those are different parties in Germany.
AfD, SPD, and CDU?
Yes.
Ah, gotcha. Cat Chat says, konnichiwa. What's up, Cat? Of course, these are instances of plausible fraud that are extremely easy to catch simply because no one alive was actually born in 1800. Presumably, if there are dozens of instances like this, there are far more instances not so easily detected. Speaking of which, this data set also tells the dates on which ballots were requested and returned. As pointed out by some guy on Twitter. Let's say, oh god. Hopefully I did not completely lose my spot, but some guy on Twitter. What are we talking about here? Pennsylvania data shows that some of the mail-in ballots were returned before they were mailed. on the same day or next day. I marked such ballots as suspicious, read in the plot. There are 109,421, 3.53%. Something went wrong. People's pundit, Skylock. Okay. Going back. Waiting for my meal. I am hungry, waiting for my meal to heat up, says Kat. Yeah, I'm going to have to get dinner right after this myself. As pointed out by some guy on Twitter, that guy that you guys just saw there are 109,421 instances in which the return date is earlier than the request date. USA Today is just a rag, says Truegrave. I kind of have to doubt that a little bit because USA Today has put forth the evidence as to how that the $15 minimum wage in Seattle, Washington was had negatively affected them, how it hurt Seattle, Washington. So I would not buy into that opinion just lockstep, Truegrave, or at least I won't right now anyways. How many government websites have you gone to looking up that particular subject in regards to voting on ballots? I haven't went to any government websites. Not technically government websites. Actually, no, not government websites in general. So that's one line of statistical evidence. A second line of evidence concerns mail-in ballots not only in Pennsylvania but also in Michigan. Specifically, Biden's advantage in mail-in absentee votes in Pennsylvania and Michigan was several times what it was in any other swing state. This on its own is hard to explain without positing fraud. Okay. A dog's name on a ballot. If they use my dog's name on the ballot, I'm going to be ticked, says Zachary Colley. Yeah, because nobody's allowed to nobody's allowed to vote in your household, right, Zach? Being an ANCAP? No, I'm joking. Did you hear of the woman's service dog voted, says Z Commander? Oh, yeah, that's what Zach was saying in response. And by the way, at any moment that you have some comment that you want to make about this article, Rashi, you know the rules. You can interject whenever you want to. As pointed out at the Red Elephants, this result is made even more unlikely by the fact that Republicans requested more ballots than Democrats did in Michigan. So, if the mail-in ballots are the ballots that are more lately going to come in, as far as voting goes, what am I trying to say? If the mail-in ballots are the ones that are more later going to get counted, then, and looking at the trends in Michigan as far as how the counting goes, like in the early half of the election, Michigan was going towards Trump. Well, actually, the early third, anyways, it looked like that it was going towards Biden. And then the middle third of time, as far as votes counted in Michigan, it was looking like that it was going for Trump. And then in like the last third of time of counting votes in Michigan, it looks like it was going for Biden. It seems kind of not really line up. The facts don't exactly line up with the alleged results, anyways, as far as voting in Michigan goes. So if the registrations of who requested mail-in ballots, and it's looking like Republicans did it more than Democrats in Michigan, then it would only go to show that if the numbers were to be really true, that more votes would have been sent off to Trump than to Biden in Michigan. I mean, unless there's like a whole lot of Republicans that had voted for Biden ultimately, which isn't outside of the realm of possibility, as later on in this article I think goes saying. Given these numbers, for Biden to have a 38-point lead in Michigan, he would have have got every Democrat vote, every independent vote, and roughly 1 in 4 Republican votes. But common sense and exit polls make it obvious that that did not happen. Yeah, exactly what I was kind of getting onto. CNN 2020. Okay, this is some graph that is presented by CNN is what they're citing there, I think. To some degree, these ballots or these numbers will be thrown off by the fact that not everyone who requested a ballot returned a ballot, and by the fact that there are still many mail-in ballots to be counted. But a huge partisan skew in this would be required to make these numbers seem remotely plausible, and so this data should increase our skepticism about mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania and especially in Michigan. Fair enough. A third line of statistical evidence involves Wisconsin. After the nighttime pause in reporting, vote shares shifted in favor of Democrats within city wards, meaning this was not due to more Democratic areas reporting later, and this was more true the more behind Democrats were in a given ward, contrary to what an explanation based on late mail-in voters would predict. Holmes 2020. The fourth line of statistical evidence also involved Wisconsin and specifically Milwaukee. As noted by the BBC, extremely high turnout in certain areas is a classic sign of voter fraud. Extremely high turnout in certain areas is classic sign of voter fraud. In Australia, where voting is legally mandatory, voter turnout rates reach 90 to 95%. Non-compulsory elections should not approach these sorts of numbers. BBC 2020. Yeah, and I kind of made my point of that I was trying to get on earlier in pointing out of how that Wisconsin had such a high turnout with the amount of registered voters that ended up ultimately voting in this last go around of presidential cycle of presidential elections.
I think I'm gonna head out.
Yeah, sorry, Rash, that this could not have been a little bit more high speed, but
No, it's okay. Anyways, I'll talk to you later.
see you later, Rash.
Alright, bye.
Anyway, was it for the candidate she voted for? Asks Invisible Hand. Okay, we're still talking about dogs voting, right? In the live chat. Yet turnout figures in many city wards in Milwaukee were initially reported to be over 100%. Woo! Yeah, that ain't possible. City of Milwaukee votes big for Biden. Joe Biden won huge margins Tuesday in the city of Milwaukee. Where did he do best? This is according to TRE 2020. The turnout in the different wards, registered voters, they're almost reaching in the thousands. But yeah, 202%, 201%, 125%, 117%, 115%, 108%, 101%, 100%. This, yeah, what's with the percentages that go over 100%? There's obviously some fishy shit going on here, folks. And supposedly Biden had got 70% of the one ward that has over 1,300 registered voters. That's a lot of three-digit percentages. Exactly, Zach. So this is a very stark example of voter fraud right here. You can't make this shit up. You cannot dodge around this shit, no matter what the more leftward media says about voter fraud. This is stark and obvious answer about evidence of voter fraud happening in Wisconsin, Milwaukee more precisely. This was later said to be a mistake and revised, but the revised numbers still include various wards with turnout levels that would normally be considered evidence of fraud. Yeah, you still got one ward that is registering 125% turnout. Although it says regular voters is 4, so it doesn't mean a whole lot as far as raw numbers go, as far as raw number of votes goes. But 92% out in a ward of 1,029. Damn. All these high turnouts right here. Higher double digits. 87% and upward. Does anyone else want to call doubt? Want to press X to doubt as far as these numbers actually being legitimate and actually suspecting that it's fraudulent? Those districts are all imposters. Out the airlock, says Techno 1200. Exactly. So, a fifth and a final line of evidence concerns so-called bellwether counties. These are counties where the person who wins the county almost always wins the presidential race. Wing or win? I don't know. As a set, they've correctly predicted every U.S. election of the last 50 years until this one. Interesting. I'll have to take a deeper look at that sometime later. There are other lines of evidence out there, but this article has presented the ones that I find most compelling. See here and here for problems with the Benford analysis going around. And these lines of evidence, or analyses, pardon me, with the Benford analyses going around. And these lines of evidence cast hundreds of thousands of votes in doubt, more than enough to alter the result of the presidential election. As I've argued, voter fraud is reasonably common in the U.S., and so we would be unjustified in dismissing the case for fraud in this election out of hand. We should also note that if fraud were to occur, the sort of evidence we'd expect to have is exactly the sort of evidence we do have. Even if fraud were to occur at a mass level, it would be surprising if we had evidence even better than this. If we had video of fraud being committed clearly in view of the camera, or we had a mass wave of admission to thousands of instances of fraud. Given this, we should not require this sort of utopian evidence to be convinced that fraud likely occurred. Instead, we should require the exact sort of evidence I've presented, and so we are justified in thinking significant fraud occurred until we are presented with equally powerful arguments to the contrary. Importantly, these arguments have not shown that Trump would have certainly won the election absent any voter fraud, but they do show that the official election results do not justify us in thinking that Biden would have won a fair election either. Given this, to ensure fairness, we need to either find a way to remove ballots that are fraudulent or throw out the entire election and have a redo. Of course, something being in the interest of fairness is no guarantee that it will occur. I'm not predicting that these things actually will happen, but hopefully I've been successful in showing that they should happen. You really have, for me at least, dude. There's a very good article there. And I'll definitely be linking that in the description box after going off air. Truegrave says, I'm done listening to this. Simply too much trust in leftist news articles. Just listen to the Ministry of Truth and don't believe your lying eyes. Fine, be that way, Grave. Jeez. How about this, Grave? If you're still listening, how about you do this? Give me an article that goes presenting some tangible evidence in regards of Sharpie usage of ballots, making the ballots invalid. Do me a favor and just give me an article that goes talking about that. That goes showing evidence of that on that front. About time Grave left, says Zachary Colley. We get it. Legacy media is untrustworthy. You don't need to be a dick about it. Shit. Honestly, yeah. Grave was being a little bit overly abrasive in the live chat. I mean, Grave, if you want to convince me that Sharpie ballots are being invalidated, are being just thrown out, well then give me an article that goes showing some tangible evidence on this front. Jeez. Interesting. chat froze, says cat chat. Had to refresh. Oh. I'm just gonna continue on for right now, but there was a little screen cap that Truegrave had actually presented from Discord. That might show that there's actually a little bit of instruction on the front of Sharpie usage. azdems, azdem.org. I might have to talk to Truegrave a little bit after this show, actually. I think I might have pissed him off. At the same time, he kind of pissed me off too with his over brashness and obnoxiousness in the live chat. Town hall. So moving on to the next article here, that is serving as a bit of evidence on the front of on the front of voter fraud. The USPS whistleblower in Michigan claims, or excuse me, not the, but just USPS whistleblower in Michigan claims higher ups were engaging in voter fraud. Update investigation launched. So, according to James O'Keefe, the Office of the Inspector General for the USPS is investigating. Now, I'm just going to actually present the screen cap that was shared on Discord right now, just for context's sake. So for context, oh god, you cannot hardly see it. Can I zoom in somehow? Oh, I cannot. But the screen cap, if I was able to pull it up any further. Actually, let me see if I can save the image and save it right here. I'm just gonna close that down. If it's a JPEG, then zooming in will make the image blurry. I don't know. Doesn't look like it'll be too blurry. Do I need a special pen to mark my ballot? A standard black or blue ballpoint pen is sufficient. Do not use red ink or permanent marker. This may result in a false read by ballot tabulation machines. As the screen cap was provided by Truegrave. Grave, come back to the stream. There is your presentation right there of me presenting your screen cap from that you shared from Discord. Now, chill your beans. According to James O'Keefe, the Office of the Inspector General for the USPS is investigating. Update at Project Veritas has been contacted by a special agent within the Office of Inspector General for the USPS who is aware of our video, believes the allegations of wrongdoing fall under their jurisdiction, and they are assessing whether an investigation is appropriate. Yeah. Wait, I guess it's pulling up Twitter for us to actually listen to this.
Tell us where you work.
I work in the Traverse City Post Office, more specifically the Barlow branch.
Your boss told you and your colleagues something that shocked you this morning. What was it?
We were issued a directive this morning to collect any ballots we find in mailboxes, collection boxes, just outgoing mail in general, separate them at the end of the day so that they could hand stamp them with the previous day's date. Today is November 4th, for clarification.
Who is your boss, and what is his title?
Jonathan would be a direct supervisor, yes. As of right now, he is the opening supervisor for the Barlow branch post office. So and this is anecdotal, carrier down at another office said they watched the postmaster doing it. If it were just a typical day, it would be clerks doing it up at the distribution center.
So 8 p.m. Election Day, November 3rd. The Court of Appeals ruled ballots have to be received by that time. And what were you told?
To separate them today so they could mark them with yesterday's date and send them through the express system to wherever they needed to go.
This appears to be an attempt to circumvent Michigan law and allow late votes. And you said there was a hamper where letter carriers were supposed to leave their ballots. Where are the ballots now?
They were putting them into express bags to go to the distribution center. In regards to a hamper, there was a standard hamper that all letter mail is supposed to go to, and they had a tub next to it that we were supposed to put any ballots collected today into.
Yes. What made you come forward?
That's sketchy. I don't like sketchy. It screams corruption. Also, knowing the post office's leanings politically, it didn't seem quite right.
What is your message to other postal workers who see things like this?
Report it. Report it. How are we supposed to have any integrity in this country if we are just going to let things slide based on a scaling issue?
Are you afraid of retaliation against you?
I've had whistleblower policies backfire on me in the past, so yes.
We'll have to reach out to Jonathan Clark for comment. Hey, is this Jonathan?
Yes.
Hey, I'm a reporter with Project Veritas, James O'Keefe here, and I have information that you guys have been stamping ballots with the previous date, November 3rd. He just hung up the phone on me. He just hung up the phone on me.
I think I actually saw this clip that was played on Actual Justice Warrior on one of his videos. So yeah, that was definitely interesting. If they're just like hanging up, trying to very nervously play denial about this in the same way that the WHO, the World Health Organization, has been playing denial with Taiwan over the whole coronavirus thing and how they're handling the pandemic and whatnot, then because they're being influenced by China to not want to admit to Taiwan's good doing, I mean, if it's the same line of logic anyways, then it really is suspect on the part of the election officials in Michigan. So, original post. A United States Postal Service worker on Wednesday told Project Veritas that a supervisor named Jonathan Clark in Traverse City, Michigan, one of the big swing states this election cycle, potentially engaged in voter fraud. We were issued a directive this morning to collect any ballots we find in mailboxes. Collection boxes, just outgoing mail in general. Separate them at the end of the day so that they could hand stamp them with the previous day's date. The whistleblower stated. Today is November 4th, for clarification. Michigan courts ruled that ballots had to be received by the election clerk before the polls on election day, which would mean 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, November 3rd. According to the whistleblower, the ballots are in express bags so they could be sent to the USPS distribution center. In regards to a hamper, there's a standard hamper that all letter mail is supposed to go to, and they had a tub next to it, and we were supposed to put any ballots collected today into, the carrier stated. The postal worker said they decided to come forward because things appeared sketchy and they didn't like the corruption, even though he or she is afraid of potential retaliation. The person said they want other postal workers who see similar things to come forward. How are we supposed to have any integrity in this country if we are just going to let things slide based on a scaling issue, the whistleblower asked rhetorically. When Project Veritas, James O'Keefe, reached out to the supervisor, Jonathan Clark, he was hung up on. Yeah, as showed in the clip there. Alright. So that's the end of that article. It was a fairly short one. And I didn't realize that Town Hall is kind of a somewhat of a right-leaning website. But all the same, just looking at the footage right there of the whistleblower, it shows as evidence to towards the narrative or just the idea in general that there is election fraud, voter fraud happening. And of course, in Pennsylvania, just to give the basic rundown on this article, as I already pre-read it, the Pennsylvania governor is just dismissing and attacking all the demands for an immediate audit as far as voting goes in Pennsylvania within regards to the election. I can't remember the exact details, and right now I am kind of discouraged and tired at the same time, so I just wanted to get this done as quick as possible. And I'm probably going to save that coronavirus news for Sunday, honestly, at this point, folks. It's already 9:16 p.m. right now. Justice Department investigating vote fraud. We understand that these are serious allegations, and we do not make them lightly. Amid allegations of vote fraud in the 2020 presidential election, the Department of Justice has opened an investigation in response to a formal complaint. Lawyers for the Nevada Republican Party sent the referral to Attorney General William Barr, describing evidence of 3,062 instances of vote fraud, Fox News reported. Going to Fox News for your citation is not exactly that reliable of information to go off of by, just saying. We expect that number to grow substantially, the Nevada GOP said on Twitter. Thousands of individuals have been identified who appear to have violated the law by casting ballots after they moved from Nevada. Ooh. A lawyer for the Trump campaign said voters were cross-referenced with the National Change of Address database, and it was learned that many had received and returned mailed ballots even though they no longer were eligible to vote in Nevada. You have any citation for that aside from Fox News? Just asking. Voter fraud is a serious federal felony, one that cuts to the heart of representative democracy, the lawyer told Fox News. We understand that these are serious allegations. Okay, close that down. We understand that these are serious allegations and we do not make them likely. Although I think Dems would probably say otherwise, just say otherwise in response to you, Nevada GOP. Our lawyers just sent a criminal referral to AG Barr regarding at least 3,062 instances of voter fraud. We expect that number to grow substantially. Thousands of individuals have been identified who appear to have violated the law by casting ballots after they moved from Nevada. Nevada ballots for kids. 4 mail votes cast in Washoe County by people under 18. 1 Dem and 3 NP. What does the NP stand for exactly? It's probably mean like non-party. I did not mean to click that. Father of a 17-year-old who registered and received ballot thankfully contacted county response his ineligibility. The radical left dreams to lower voting age, but they can't legally vote. And troubling allegations. James O'Keefe talking about it's talking about the whistleblower thing within regards to the Postal Service. The evidence includes a photo of a mail-in ballot from Washoe County, accompanied by a caption that claimed 4 mail-in ballots were cast by voters under age 18. The father of a 17-year-old who received ballot contacted the county regarding his ineligibility, the Nevada GOP said. And two people that the names of their deceased relatives were used to cast ballots. This should outrage all Nevadans, the Nevada GOP said. In Nevada, election officials have been ordered to count ballots until next week. If they were postmarked by Election Day, or if they were postmarked by Election Day. I keep on giving the wrong inflection in how I read these sentences right here. As a sentence is about to end off, I end up inflexing my voice to make it sound like I'm just like halfway through the sentence instead. Something weird about me. Late Thursday, officials said they still had about 200,000 in hand, mostly from the mail, to count an unknown number that might come in. Nevada Governor Steve Sisolak, a Democrat, said his state is widely recognized as being a leader in election administration. Prior to the election, President Trump warned repeatedly that mail-in voting was subject to fraud as Democrats expanded it, arguing it was necessary because of the coronavirus pandemic. And that's the end of that article. And yeah, I think I'm done with this episode of Strike Force, y'all. Sorry that it's been kind of a little bit of an off day as far as the energy and whatnot goes with this episode. But anyway, I'm going to get out of here and probably have some talks with some people in my Discord server. Who knows? But sorry that I did not hardly address what was in the live chat, but like I said, I had got off to a late start and I wanted to just try and power through this as quickly as possible. But anyway, I'm the Dark Conservatarian. See y'all later. Hope to see you Sunday. Good night and God bless.